During the month of September, we want to encourage women to get their yearly pelvic exams. Tamika Felder is the founder of Tamika and Friends Incorporated. She is committed to helping women get the information and support they need about cervical cancer. Hey, Tamika, good to have you here in the studio.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. This is so important to talk about our vaginal health as women. So tell me, at 25 years old, tell me what happened.
I love that you said vaginal health.
Absolutely.
Because in order to talk about that, we have to say the word vagina.
Yes.
So at 25 in 2001, I was diagnosed with cervical cancer. And I was one of those people. I was working a freelance job. I didn't have any insurance. But I was okay with that because, you know, I was young and invincible, or so I thought. I got an abscess under my right arm that had nothing to do with my cancer, but it led me to go in and get a full physical. A doctor asked a simple question: when was your last pelvic exam? When was your last PAP? And I thought about it and I was like, ooh, it's been like 3 or 4 years. And what I've learned along this journey is a lot of women, unless they need their birth control refilled or they're having a baby, they're not going in to see their OBGYN. So I was recommended to this doctor to go see, and I was like, oh, it's good. I'm starting this new job with insurance, so let me go and get a full health screening from head
to toe. That's
yeah.
right.
So I went in and I was thinking, okay, I'll stop in on my way to work, still have time to go to work. And this one day in 2001 changed my life forever. So I was sitting in the doctor's office and she was like, no this, no that, just exactly how we're sitting. She was on that side. And it was like watching this happen. I was above watching this scenario play out. And she touched me by my knee and she said, now let's talk about your pap smear. And it was like Charlie Brown, you know, the teacher. It was like wonk, wonk, wonk. I heard cancer and heard nothing else. And I'm thinking, this doctor is a quack. You know, I came in here the same way that I look right now. You know, I was happy, didn't think anything was wrong with me, and I had cervical cancer. So at 25, in June of 2014, at Johns Hopkins University, I lost everything that I thought that made me a woman. Everything. I'll never be able to create life or feel a baby kick inside of me. And 25-year-old Tamika was devastated, and I was alarmed for many years. And this was during a time when people weren't talking about cervical cancer, so there was no talk of HPV or the human papillomavirus. And one day my friend's husband, who was in medical school, said, well, you know you got that probably from sleeping around or something like that. And I was mortified. I was like, you know me, that's not my story. And I didn't talk about it anymore, and the doctors weren't talking about it. And then one day I went on a listserv and I saw it, and I said, I'm gonna ask my doctor about it. And my doctor was like, yeah, you probably caught HPV sometime in your life and your body didn't clear it. And because I wasn't going to the doctor, it wasn't caught, and it turned into cervical cancer. So for about 2 years, I didn't really share my story because I had to get a radical hysterectomy. You know, that meant cutting off the top layer of my vagina, having radiation therapy, you know, chemotherapy, and it was a horrible experience. But you know what? I'm still here to tell my story.
And beautiful, too.
Thank you. And a lot of women, they're not here to tell their story.
Right.
So I decided I was going to share my story. And my Southern mom at the time, she was like, oh, God, you're going to embarrass yourself and the family.
Right.
But I have to tell you, this has been a long journey for me from when I started talking in 2003. In 2006, a vaccine to prevent the virus that causes cervical cancer came out. It was then that I was doing my 5-year cancer test to see if my cancer was still clear, no evidence of disease. And it was. And my mom said to me, God's gonna bless you for everything that you're doing. And to me, that made such a difference. And over the time, I've been able to help women share their story and be advocates. I've also been there for women from the time they were diagnosed till they take their last breath. And it's very hard. It's really hard that women are still dying from this disease because for cervical cancer, not necessarily for the 4 other gynecological cancers, but definitely for cervical cancer, we can prevent this disease. We have a test to diagnose it. We have a vaccine to prevent it. We even have a test to diagnose the virus that causes it. So we have everything that we need.
When you went to the doctor to get your physical, your annual, were you having any symptoms?
No, no. So
are there any symptoms?
There are some symptoms: bleeding during sex or after sex, terrible menstrual cramps, lower back pains, but these are all things that could be anything
Absolutely.
else.
So
you know, and women, we're resilient. We have bad menstrual cramps.
Right.
We pop extra pills and keep on going.
That's exactly right.
So the important thing here is what I call my 11th commandment. No matter how scared you are, because nobody wants to get a pap test.
That's right.
It's not a fun thing. I don't know any woman who thinks,
yay, I'm so excited to go get the stirrups.
you know, and then it's the dreading, like sliding down on the table or the chair with the paper.
And
your sweat.
Right.
Yeah, it's not a fun situation, but it's something that we have to do because this is preventable. And I can tell you from having it is hard. You don't want it. But preventing it, it's easy. So it's just 1 day, 1 year, go. And guidelines change often, so it makes it very difficult to understand what to do at what age. It's not as easy as, say, breast cancer, where at 40, you know, unless you have family history,
That's right.
you go in
That's right.
and you get a mammogram.
Yeah.
Here it's, you know, you get your first pap at 21 or at the first onset of sex. And then if you're 30 and over, you add in an HPV test. If you're 9 to 26, you can get the HPV vaccine for boys or girls. So it's a lot of information to remember, and I try to educate women and men as best I can so they can share it with other people.
So there is cervical cancer. There is ovarian cancer. There is, help me out here.
Vulvar, and there's
Okay.
also uterine, which is also
Right.
known as endometrial cancer.
Yes,
Yeah.
okay, okay.
So those are the top 5 cancers for gynecological, basically below the belt,
Right.
that we need to focus on.
So when I go to my doctor, because of you, I am calling my doctor today to say I need to come in and
Absolutely.
get checked. So the type of exam that she's going to do is just taking little
Cells from your cervix for a pap test that only detects for cervical cancer. And if you're over 30, they'll also do an HPV test. But you have to ask for it because some doctors, you know, they're creatures of habit. So whatever they learned when they left medical school is what they're still practicing. And that's why we
Very
also
true.
ask for women to go see a gynecologic oncologist because those doctors have had 7 years extra training. I do a lot of work for the Foundation to End Women's Cancer. And so we tell women that they have to learn, listen, and act. They have to learn the facts of all these cancers below the belt, and then they have to listen to their body. Some cancers whisper, others don't. So, but you have to know what you're listening for, and then you have to act. You have to call your doctor, and you have to be proactive about it. And going to the doctor, especially for a pap smear or a pelvic exam, can be intimidating.
Stop. Pap smear, pelvic exam. What's the difference?
A pap smear is directly looking at your cervix for abnormal cells. They're looking for cervical
So when they
cancer.
take the swab and they do this, and I'm like, oh, it feels awful, and they put it in
the
there.
liquid.
That's what that's for, and they send it off to a lab.
Yep, a cytotechnologist.
Okay, so then the vaginal exam.
The pelvic exam, is looking at the whole vaginal area. The doctor will also check the ovaries. They may press down on your belly. They may go in through the back or different areas, and it's uncomfortable, but it's very important because there is no test to diagnose ovarian cancer unless it's in the late stage. So we also want to make sure if you do have one of these gynecological cancers that you catch it early. Because when you catch it early,
That's right.
we can do more. It's not that we can't do anything at later stages, but it's much harder to do.
Tamika Felder, founder of Tamika and Friends Incorporated. Thank you so much. You're such a bright light,
Thank you.
and I just really appreciate you sharing your story and being an advocate for all of us women.
Thank you.
God bless you, baby.
Thank you.
All right, we'll be right back.